I need to tell this story because I've been holding it inside for almost 2 years now. And every time I think I've finally made peace with it, something small happens. A photo pops up in my memories, or I hear a song that was playing at what was supposed to be the happiest day of my sister's life, and it all comes crashing back like a wave I never saw coming. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand the full picture before you judge me. And I know some of you will judge me. That's okay. I've been judged by people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, so internet strangers don't scare me anymore. My name is irrelevant, but for the sake of this story, call me Dana. I'm 34 years old, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I am the older of two daughters. My sister, I'll call her Melissa, is 3 years younger than me. Growing up, Melissa and I were close in the way that only sisters who've survived something together can be. Our father left when I was 9 and she was 6. He didn't just leave, he disappeared. No calls, no birthday cards, no child support that my mother could collect without hiring a lawyer she couldn't afford. He was simply gone one day, the way smoke disappears when wind picks up, and our mother was left holding everything. Mom worked 2 jobs for most of our childhoods. She was a medical transcriptionist during the day and a hotel front desk clerk on Friday and Saturday nights. This meant Melissa and I spent a lot of time alone, a lot of time fending for ourselves, and a lot of time raising each other. I made Melissa's lunches, I helped her with homework, I braided her hair before school when I barely knew what I was doing. I was 9, then 10, then 11, playing at being a parent because the real ones weren't available. That shared survival created something between us that I thought was unbreakable. Not just love, that specific kind of loyalty that only comes from going through hard things together. I genuinely believed that no matter what happened in our adult lives, Melissa and I had a foundation that couldn't be cracked. I was wrong. I know that now. But for a long time, I believed it with my whole heart. I married young, 22 years old, straight out of community college, and I thought I was in love. His name was Garrett, and I am going to be very clear about what Garrett was, because it matters deeply to everything that comes after. Garrett was abusive. Not in the beginning. It never is in the beginning, which is something I wish someone had told me before I signed that marriage certificate. In the beginning, he was charming and attentive and made me feel like I was the only woman on earth. He came from money, which impressed my mother in a way I now find heartbreaking to think about. He had this easy confidence that I mistook for security, this commanding way of walking into a room that I mistook for strength. The abuse started small, the way it always does. A comment about how I dressed, a subtle undermining of decisions I made at work, slowly replacing my friends with his friends, my preferences with his preferences, until I looked up one day and realized I had been slowly erased from my own life. By year 3, he was screaming at me regularly. By year 4, he had put his hands on me twice, once grabbing me by the arm hard enough to leave a bruise, once shoving me into a door frame during an argument about money. I told no one. I was ashamed. I was scared. And I had been so thoroughly conditioned to believe that his behavior was somehow my fault that I genuinely couldn't separate his reality from my own. Melissa knew. Not everything, but enough. She saw a bruise once, and I lied about it, and she looked at me with those eyes that said she didn't believe me, but she wasn't going to push. She came to our house occasionally and watched how Garrett spoke to me, dismissive, condescending, correcting me mid-sentence in front of her, and she told me once, gently, that she didn't like how he treated me. I defended him. I always defended him. That's what you do when you're in it. I left Garrett when I was 27. It took a therapist, a very patient friend from work, and one night where he threw a ceramic bowl across the kitchen that shattered 6 inches from my head for me to finally understand that I could either leave or wait to find out what came after the bowl. I packed a bag while he was at work, and I never went back. The divorce was ugly and expensive, and he contested everything. But I got out. I got out, and I spent the next 2 years slowly, painfully reconstructing a version of myself that felt like mine. During all of this, Melissa was a phone call away. She said the right things. She told me I was proud of me for leaving. She came and helped me move into my apartment. She sat with me on my bathroom floor one night when I was crying so hard I couldn't breathe, and she held my hand and told me I was going to be okay. So you understand why I trusted her. You understand when she called me 4 years after my divorce to tell me she was engaged to a man named Philip, I was nothing but happy for her. Philip seemed like a decent man, steady job, kind eyes, genuinely seemed to adore Melissa in a way that was easy and uncomplicated. I liked him. I told her I liked him. I told her I was so glad she had found someone good. "Will you be my maid of honor?" she asked, and I said yes before she had even finished the sentence. What followed was 18 months of wedding planning, and I want to be honest with you, I loved it. I loved every spreadsheet and venue tour and cake tasting. I loved being the person Melissa called at 11 o'clock at night to debate flower arrangements. It felt like those years of taking care of each other had evolved into something beautiful. I was taking care of her on the best day of her life, and I was honored to do it. The budget became an issue early on. Melissa and Philip were not wealthy. They had a combined income that was fine for their lifestyle but didn't stretch comfortably to a wedding. My mother had a small amount saved, around $4,000, that she wanted to contribute. But the venue Melissa had fallen in love with, a restored farmhouse property about 40 minutes outside of Charlotte, had a rental fee alone of nearly $8,000. The total wedding Melissa envisioned, the dress, the catering, the photographer, the flowers, was going to run somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000. I made a decision. I want to be honest that this was my decision, freely made, and I don't say what I'm about to say to claim moral superiority or to make Melissa the villain for accepting it, but I offered to contribute $14,000 toward the wedding. I had been saving steadily since my divorce. I was doing well at my job, and I genuinely wanted Melissa to have the wedding she dreamed of. I told her it was a gift. I told her not to worry about paying it back. I meant it. Over those 18 months of planning, I was deeply embedded in every detail. I organized the bridal shower, I coordinated the bachelorette trip to Savannah, Georgia, 4 days, 8 women, a rented house, and an itinerary I built from scratch. I managed communication between the vendors because Melissa found it overwhelming. I was, in every practical sense, the engine behind this wedding. And through all of it, I never once suspected what was coming. It was about 6 weeks before the wedding when I first noticed something was off. Melissa started being slightly less communicative, a little slower to respond to texts, a little vague on the phone. I told myself she was stressed. Brides get stressed. It's normal. I doubled down on managing things so she didn't have to. Then, one Saturday, I drove to her apartment to drop off some things I had picked up for the welcome bags: local honey, a small bottle of hot sauce, little cards I had hand calligraphied with each guest's name. I let myself in with the spare key she had given me, because she had told me to just come in when I arrived. She wasn't in the living room, but I could hear her on the phone in the bedroom, door slightly ajar. I was not trying to eavesdrop. I want to be very clear about that. I walked toward the bedroom to let her know I was there, and I heard her say a name. Garrett. I stopped walking. She was talking to Garrett, my ex-husband, the man who had thrown a bowl at my head, the man she had watched dismiss and demean me for years. She was talking to him, and the tone of her voice was warm and familiar in a way that turned my stomach, because it told me this was not the first time they had spoken. This was a relationship that had been maintained in secret. I stood in that hallway and listened. I know. And what I heard was Melissa asking Garrett if he was sure he still wanted to do the reading at the wedding. He apparently confirmed that he did. She thanked him. She laughed at something he said. She sounded like she was talking to a friend. When she came out of the bedroom and saw me standing there, the color drained from her face. And in that single moment of watching her go pale, I knew it was worse than a reading. The conversation that followed was one of the most surreal of my life. Yes, Garrett had been invited to the wedding. No, she had not told me. Yes, they had stayed in contact over the years, not constantly, but here and there, she said, as if the frequency somehow changed what it meant. And then she said something that I genuinely could not process in real time. She said that she had also asked Garrett to walk her down the aisle. Not me, not our mother, not Phil's father who had offered, Garrett. Her reasoning, delivered in a voice that shook only slightly, was that our father was gone, that Garrett had been a significant part of her life during a formative time, that he had always been kind to her, even when things were difficult, and that it felt meaningful to have him there in that role. He had always been kind to her. I want you to sit with that for a moment. The man who had abused me, her sister, the person who had practically raised her, the person who had paid $14,000 to give her this wedding, had always been kind to her, and so he deserved a place of honor on her wedding day. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I said very quietly that I needed to leave, and I walked out of her apartment carrying the welcome bag supplies that I had spent an entire Sunday afternoon assembling. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 45 minutes. I called my therapist's emergency line. I cried in a way that felt physical, like something being ripped out of me. And then I drove home and I lay on my couch and I tried to understand how I had so profoundly misread the relationship I thought was the most important one in my life. In the days that followed, Melissa called and texted repeatedly. I responded briefly, telling her I needed time to process. She sent a long message explaining that she hadn't known how to tell me, that she knew I might be upset, but that she hoped I could understand that her relationship with Garrett was separate from what had happened in my marriage, that he was a different person to her than he had been to me. My mother, when I told her, did something I hadn't expected. She got quiet for a long time, and then she said she had known Melissa was still in touch with Garrett, and she had thought it was better not to mention it. That was the second blow. My own mother had known and had said nothing for what I later learned were years. I asked her how long. She said she wasn't sure exactly, maybe since around the time of my divorce. So while I was sitting on my bathroom floor crying, while Melissa was holding my hand and telling me I was going to be okay, she had been maintaining a secret friendship with the man I was divorcing. She had been compartmentalizing me, putting me in the category of sister to be supported, while keeping Garrett in some separate box that she apparently thought I never needed to know existed. The wedding was 6 weeks away. I had paid $14,000. I was the maid of honor, and I spent those 6 weeks trying to decide what to do. I talked to my therapist at length. I talked to 2 close friends. I wrote in my journal every single night, trying to excavate what I actually felt beneath the shock. And what I found, once the initial horror settled, was this. I wasn't just hurt. I wasn't just angry. I was genuinely frightened by what Melissa's choices revealed about how she saw me, about the value she assigned to my safety and my healing versus her comfort in maintaining a relationship she decided was worth keeping. The fear wasn't irrational. A person who had watched me be abused and said nothing while continuing to befriend my abuser, what did that mean about how she would show up for me in the future? What did it mean about the past? Had she known more than she let on about what was happening in my marriage? Had there been conversations between her and Garrett that I could never know about now? 3 weeks before the wedding, I made my decision. I called Melissa and told her, calmly, that I would not be attending the wedding. I told her that I would not be serving as maid of honor.
I told her that I needed her to understand that my decision had nothing to do with wanting to punish her or ruin her day, and everything to do with the fact that I could not stand at the altar next to her while she elevated the man who had abused me to a position of honor at the most significant moment of our adult relationship. I did not attend the wedding. My mother attended. She did not choose sides, she told me, because that wasn't fair to either of her children. I have complicated feelings about that too, which I am still working through. Garrett walked Melissa down the aisle. I know this because mutual acquaintances have told me. There are pictures somewhere on the internet of the two of them, him in a suit, her in her dress, smiling in the golden afternoon light of the farmhouse property I had helped her choose. In the months that followed, Melissa and I tried once to have a real conversation about it. She apologized for not telling me, which I acknowledged. She did not apologize for keeping the friendship, and she did not express any understanding of why that friendship in secret had been a betrayal. Phil, her husband, reached out to me once via text to say he hoped our family could heal. I thanked him. He seems like a genuinely decent person, and I feel a complicated kind of sorrow for him, because he entered a marriage and a family already shaped by secrets he may not fully understand. I have not asked for the $14,000 back. I made that contribution freely, and I am not going to debase myself by demanding it be returned, even though more than one person in my life has told me I should. What I gave, I gave. The money is not the point. The point is that I spent 31 years believing I had a person, a built-in, unchosen, unconditional person, a sister who had been present for the worst years of my life and who I believed would always, at the most basic level, choose me. Not over everyone, not in every conflict, but at the most fundamental level of not actively undermining my safety and my healing. And I was wrong. I'm not writing this for validation. I've had enough therapy at this point to know that my decision was the right one for my own well-being, and I've made a kind of peace with that. I'm writing this because I think there are people out there who believe that blood is always a guarantee, that family is always a foundation, and I want them to know what I know. Sometimes the people who hold you while you cry are also the people keeping secrets that would break you, and there is no betrayal quite as complete as the one that comes from someone who was supposed to be on your side.
I still love Melissa. That's the most painful and honest thing I can tell you. I love her the way you love something you can't have back, the way you love a version of a person that turned out not to be entirely real. We are in contact now, occasionally. Holidays, our mother's health updates, brief and careful exchanges that contain none of the texture of the relationship we used to have. We are sisters who survived something together when we were children, and we are strangers who do not entirely trust each other as adults. That is the story of the wedding I paid for and did not attend. That is the story of the most important relationship of my childhood and what it became. I don't know if I'm the villain of this story or the victim or something in between. I suspect I am what most people are, a person who loved someone, got hurt by them, made a decision based on that hurt, and is still figuring out how to live with the weight of what was lost. If you've made it this far, thank you for reading. And if you have a sister, call her. But if you call her, pay attention to what she says, and pay equal attention to what she doesn't.